Sever thy pride! Pierce thy...
All right. Hi. So I'm Matt. This is the first time I'm doing a stream like this. It's mostly just to go over the current state of sort of my work, such as MerFight and Battle High. So if you're watching, thanks. This is mostly just for practice of doing this type of thing because it's something I want to get into the habit of doing. Apparently, I did something like this back in January and February, so I'm kind of just doing that again. So the first part of this is I have a little presentation. I just called it Mattrifireside chat because I just wanted something a little silly. So I'm going to just get right into it. So the agenda today is I'm going to first be talking about some MerFight stuff. Then I have some Battle High 2 A Plus Exchange stuff. And then if anybody is interested or available or watching, I'll be doing a Q&A. So in September, I focused primarily on MerFight story mode, trying to get the game content complete. I got 9 out of the 12 characters done in sort of a first pass, meaning I just got like their dialogue and their scenes and the fights working. Actually, that's wrong. It's actually 10 out of 12 because I just finished Jarkos's today. But the overall goal is to get those done, and then I'm going to focus on a second pass, which will be like the reward costumes, any animations, and props that are supposed to be in those game scenes, and kind of going from there. And tweaking some dialogue. I noticed there's a lot of lines that are just like characters will say like, so what? And it's like, that's not really useful for this type of story mode dialogue delivery. I'm mostly kind of trying to stray away from too many gameplay changes at this point so I can focus on the content and hopefully leave early access by 2024. We also, in September, on the 2nd, we had the Press Any Button League tournament for MerFight. Congrats to Ravecoon, Codirius, and Mibiador for making top 3, as well as Mohas Gridlock for commentating and kind of helping set it all up, as well as Cloud Chasers, who is part of the Press Any Button League, who provided the prize. And just thanks to everyone who entered, and is also anyone who filled out the surveys, because that was another new thing I did, is I did a survey after the tournament for people to fill out and hopefully give some direction to just kind of help give some feedback to the game in a less hectic way than just like a bunch of Discord messages after a tournament. The survey highlights were that Arctina, Nieko, Bolt, and Odon are the strongest characters, which I think 4 out of 12 characters being considered the strongest is kind of not horrible. But there are some things after watching the tournament and some feedback, I think I can tweak to kind of make things a little more balanced between all of them. And then Octonia is the weakest characters, and Grapplers kind of struggle in general. I think it's sort of you land the big throw with a grapple in MerFight, but normally it doesn't really add up to much unless you're Gamma and have resources. A lot of other characters don't really get much out of their grappling throws or their special throws, so that's something I might look into a little. And that overall the online is passable, but I definitely want to look into it. There's 2 routes I could go. One is I could port it to Photon Quantum, which will take longer, but I think be an overall better experience. But there's also Photon Fusion, which I could try, but it's a little risky as well in different terms. So I want to look into that, but that's definitely a low-hanging fruit thing. That might even be a post-early access thing, because it's not like, it's passable. The online is okay. We were able to play. Obviously, some connections are not great, but I think that's just like kind of the nature of online fighting games, especially as some of the feedback said, a game as fast as MerFight. So MerFight 0.49, which is the next version, I'm pretty close to getting this ready. I focused a little bit on just trying to help some overall changes to the game's universal systems a little to help with some vortex issues. I also adjusted some of the characters that were mentioned earlier, and this build should be ready probably early next week, because I want to get it out. It's already available for patrons, but I want to get it out earlier or I want to get it out next week for other players. But I need to test to make sure the new story mode content and the other stuff is working. So before that, I'm going to show some of those changes right now. just want to turn down this volume. I think the rest is fine. Or I'll lower this too. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so put the volume actually back on though. Let's see. So I'm going to go to training mode, or actually what I'll do is I'll go into the info and go over some of the changes. Obviously, all the story mode content. So the general changes, the kind of the biggest ones are backdashes now have 8 frames of throw invulnerability. On startup, players have 4 frames of throw invulnerability after being hit in the air and recovering or get up or blocking or anything like that. Players should be able to more easily enter super and special moves after landing during air recovery. That was something where someone gets air reset and then they can't enter their super properly, so that was something I looked into and tried to fix. And finally, air recovery now has these little hops that after you get hit in the air and you reset, you kind of go to make it more clear that you've been air reset and to kind of give a little bit of a buffer and time frame to kind of help with that. Character-wise, King Ro was considered one of the weaker characters, and it's because he has a counterattack that doesn't always work. So the idea is, I just realized I'm not actually sharing what I'm talking about. That would have helped. Yeah, story mode, general things, I'll show these off anyway. Artina, I did some things where the overhead, this is kind of a weird one, but like the overhead now, I have it pull in the player, which I'll explain why I'm trying that out. Octonia has a random healing ability, and Octograb is 10 frames faster, and then Naoko, I did something with the second hit of his Rekka to push opponents farther away, which I'll explain, and I made the Venom Orb slower. I just realized the Bolt comment makes no sense, but essentially Uncharged Eel Cannon is on screen for like it's been cut the amount of time it's on screen, and I removed the hitbox for Eel Charge. It's no longer attack because he already has a really good anti-air, and Eel Charge was actually another really good one, so he doesn't need 2. And then Odon's, the second hit of Double Smash launches at a different rate so that it's a little harder to combo, and then there's actually a bug with charging, and I fixed that issue, and I also minimized how much those attacks travel across screen. So I'm going to show off some of these changes. I'm going to try to anyway in training mode. Okay, so I'm going to do record. I'm too good at doing it. Now I need to make sure this is the right version. So what happens when I do streams? But that's a good thing to note. Maybe the backdash thing is not working for all characters, so I definitely need to look into that. Yeah, see, it's working for her. Okay. So that's the backdash avoiding stuff. It's not perfect, and I probably should double check to make sure it's working for Atlas and every character, but yeah, streaming never goes according to plan. This is not as bad as the Quantum stream where I wasn't focused on a window, so it broke the entire demonstration I was trying to do. So that was the throw thing, and then I think the easier one is so that's the air reset. Before, the characters didn't do that little hop where they turn like green for a second, so they do a slight hop now, and this will also happen when if you hit them in the air with a move that they hit the ground first, they'll actually do the hop anyway, so there's always that like 15-minute frame delay or hop after stuff. And then I'm going to try to demonstrate this one, but the one issue too was don't think that's a good demo of it, but I'll see. Nope. There we go. Now I know what to do. Oh, I keep resetting it. Hello. Yeah, that's not a very good one. I'm trying to think of a better reset combo for Atlas to demo the... Maybe he is just not a good character for this. Hopefully wonderful things are on the way. We'll see. That might be a better combo to demo the thing, but we'll see. Nope. There we go, that might work. Yeah, it's a hard one to demo now, especially with the hop, but the overall idea is that when you do an air reset, you should be able to super cancel more easily into the next attack of sorts. So that's sort of that thing. What other one? Yeah, I kind of demoed these, and yeah, same with the air throw iframe stuff has kind of been demoed, so I think that's good enough for those items. I'll show off the King Rose stuff real quick. But the overall thing for him is that his counter now kind of sucks in. Actually, a better idea. He's against Arcana for this. Thank you, yeah. It might be making it harder to do the air reset after super thing, but I think that overall will help with other things anyway. So it might be harder to time that super entry, but we'll see. Alright, so there's that. And then the road change involves... So even though he's really far, it will pull the character in so that it's more guaranteed. Because that was the big issue, is that the counters were never guaranteed. So I wanted to address that problem. And that goes for the super version as well. So yeah, or if she does the low one, it works that way as well. And even though it does kind of push, you can still keep doing that. Nope. I can't time my own stupid counter. You can still, like, pop cancel the counter and do some extra stuff to it. That was all I was trying to show. Still a little tricky timing-wise to get, but the hope is that it will make this character a little stronger. So that's really the only change he's getting in this build. So I'll go on to... I'm not going to do the Arctonia one. Yeah, I'll do the Arctina change. Yeah, and all this change is really doing now is that when she lands on the ground, there was an issue where if you counter poked that after landing, she would kind of go into her air reset animation is because the game was considering her still in the air, and I changed that. And the same goes for nope. The super version. So if I she'll be on the ground, so she'll be a little easier to punish in that regard. And then the other thing I did, which I'm not sure I'm going to like, is I made it so that her overhead pulls the opponent in. And my thinking with that is she'll be easier to punish. So if you hit it from... If you hit her from far away, you'll get a little closer, so that the hope is that it's easier to punish. Now, of course, that might backfire because she can do other things like that, or this, the aerial attack. So, yeah, so that's the hope, is to make it more reliable. And if it is a thing that makes her still strong but not breaking other systems, I might do it to some of her other normals, like the crouch and the standing heavy, because those also push away. So it might make sense to just let you, pull the opponent in doing those, but it also might give her too much of an advantage after block, but those are minus on block, so it might not be a big issue overall. And then the A Xchange is, I made the fireball slower, or both of them, because not only does the fireball poison, or the fireball poisons, and I was like, it seems weird that his fireball is faster than Draugos's, who doesn't poison. Now, if they both poison, I'd be like, okay. But, like, it's still pretty fast, but if they throw them around the same frame, they're not going to be that much faster. So there's that change. And then the other change to Neko, I'll be going Octonia soon. No, not is... I made the second hit of the Rekka push way a lot further, so we have it pushed that far away, and the idea is that it makes some of the rushdown stuff a little harder to do. Like, you could still roll and do other things through it, so it's not, like, perfect, but the idea is certain setups, like his super setup like that, doesn't really work anymore because the opponent has been so pushed so far away. So I'm kind of experimenting with that to see, like, if pushing someone away or that far away will help improve, like, just making him a little less aggressive when he gets sort of stuff in the corner and whatnot. So, like, yeah, that's the other thing too. So if they block those first two hits, they can't really counter that one. Now, of course, the problem is now if they block the second one, they're too far away and they might not be able to really do anything. So there's a little bit of I want to just see if this makes him still as aggressive in the corner and whatnot. But just, like, those two small changes, I wanted to experiment and see how they go for that character. And then Odon's kind of small. One thing is I actually fixed a bug with Odon. I think I mentioned it, but he was never doing the super far thing. So he was always doing the medium one. So no matter what, you'd always get this one. But I have the distance of that one. So if you don't charge it, it doesn't go nearly as far. But if it's fully charged, it goes much further. That was not really happening in the last version. Yeah, that is a thing too with the fast fireball or the slow fireball for Neko. I was thinking that as well, that, like, it might actually make him better to have a slower fireball, and in that case then I was like, okay, well now he's going to have one that's twice as fast, and just see how that goes. But yeah, I was thinking that when I was doing that test, and I was like, oh, this might actually be worse. But the big thing, yeah, that's the big Odon thing, is the charge, and then I made his thing launch way less than it used to, so that it's pretty difficult to do certain combos with, because it is an anti-air and it's a pretty decent one, and all the other anti-airs you can't really combo from unless you pop cancel. So I wanted to just lower that and see some change to that. You can still do some stuff with it, so it's not, like, completely useless now. And it's still pretty dangerous in the corner. The light one is not as good as it used to be. But I think in the corner, even in the corner, they're not as good as they used to be, but you could still do some stuff. So he's not completely nerfed in this regard. That's really all I did for him. And then finally, the Actonia stuff is pretty simple, but it's kind of hard to demonstrate in normal. So I'm going to try to just do a quick player versus player thing.
The waves of fate are crashing. Lap 1. Dive in.
Okay, so there's that. So the one is, you can't really see it here. I should have probably went into training mode for this. But the... what was I going to say? The Octo Grab is faster. It's about 10 frames faster than it used to be. So, like, it doesn't look like it, but she recovers from it a lot more quickly. And then the other, this is a weird change. I wanted to experiment with something goofy that, since the character is a doctor, I wanted to give her a slight healing mechanic. So you might have missed it or not, but essentially at a random interval, it's not really random, she will gain 88 points of health back if you do the tentacle stretch. So my idea is, one way to make her stronger is like, oh, you do that and you throw that out, and then if, you know, you do the charge up, and you'll sometimes get a health boost if you do it. But yeah, that sound effect is hilarious. I like it, but that's another thing is, in terms of the EA, it's actually interesting, or not interesting, but now that you mentioned sound effects, that's one thing I haven't really looked at in ages. I haven't talked about, like, oh, I'm going to redo the sound effects one day and all that stuff. But it is something that, like, yeah, maybe a second pass or a third pass of those would not be the worst thing. But that is her healing and power-up sound effect that I don't remember. It's somewhere from the Unity Asset Store. I don't quite remember. I think I did. Yeah, I don't think that was made by somebody. And let me see. Just displaying the frame bar. That's another polish thing, is I need to fix this thing because it's a little busted. It's not as good as Street Fighter 6's. But yeah, this is now 40 frames. It used to be 55. Or no, it used to be 50. So that's the only thing. And that's both the heavy and the light version. So that is all of the MerFight changes. Oh wait, and I'll just go into it just to show it off. There are now 1, 2, 3. There are now 10 story mode. No, that's not right. I can't count one. Yeah, there's 9 story modes available, and I might add Jargos's because it is done. But I need to test them and make sure that's why this build isn't out yet. But that is all of the MerFight changes. And I'm going to go back to my presentation. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping that the health boost will do. And because one of the main things that, when I was designing MerFight stuff, like, I didn't design MerFight super hardcore. I don't have like a strict design doc that's like, this is how the game's going to work and how it has to work. But I know I didn't want a lot of like stuff with, I wanted more like, you knock down and you kind of do your like power up special thing. That slows down gameplay a little too much for some people, so I kind of strayed away from that with like reversals and other things. But I kind of went, you know, I still want some of that, and I think this kind of Actonia tool is something that will kind of help accomplish that and hopefully improve her. So now it's like, oh, I got the big throw, I can't combo off it, but I could maybe power up and maybe get a health boost. So in October, I'm going to continue working on story mode and finer game polish things. I want to get the achievements and the challenges or challenge combo stuff done. I want to get that done. And then Alex Alchemy's charity thing, which is an online tournament event that Alex Alchemy throws every year for charity. I think this year it's the American Cancer Society, and there's a MerFight tournament on October 15th at 4, I believe. There's the challenge link. I believe Mohos is going to be TOing that. So that's really an exciting event to be a part of. And it's just a great thing in general that Alex does. And I'm excited and glad that he has decided to include MerFight in it. So that is pretty much all that's going on for MerFight in October. And the overall future of the game. So I'd love to do at least one round of DLC. I have 4 characters that I really want to do. They're talked about in story mode, and I would love to get them, done. There is the issue of like sales and interest and overall, especially if I do it post EA launch or early access launch. But I know there's still some comments on the art style and the visuals, and there's a part of me that's like, would it be better to just like do MerFight 2 with new stuff and like redo the art style and redo some of the systems? And I don't, learn from my mistakes and whatnot, but at the same time, I'm not even really out of EA yet, so it still feels like too soon to start thinking of a sequel for the game. I also want to do console exploration, just see like, would it be doable? Would it be viable? Could it work? Because I've done console for Battle High, so my hope is that it wouldn't be too hard, but this actually has networking, and the Xbox version of Battle High does not have networking, so who knows what issues would come out of cert when I finally, try to do that. And also, the nice thing with, even though it's early access, art style is one of those things that you can improve later in life in a game. Like, it's not great. It would be great if, like, at launch it looked amazing, but, I'm one person, and doing an amazing art style without a ton of art exploration beforehand is just sort of something that kind of happened with the game as I was developing it. So, kind of a lesson learned more than like, I gotta redo the entire art style. I don't have the budget and time for that. And the worst thing with games, especially the indie game fighting space, is even if I were to spend some outrageous amount of money hiring skilled artists to make the game, 2 things would probably still happen. 1, people would still say it's ugly. People say Street Fighter 6 is ugly. People say Tekken 8 is ugly. People say King of Fighters 15. They're all ugly. All the fighting games are ugly to somebody. So it doesn't matter how much money you spend. Someone's gonna think it's ugly and point out its flaws. And then that part of that too is it doesn't guarantee success. It's like, oh, you have an amazing art style. There's a lot of fighting games that have been on Kickstarter with great art styles and they didn't make their money. They didn't pass. They didn't succeed. Some were asking way too much, but like some, it's just that's the reality and the challenge of the indie space, the economy, so many things right now. So though I would love MerFight to look better, there's more of a like, this is a lesson learned for next time, as opposed to, obsessing and trying to make it look perfect. Because again, someone's going to think it's ugly no matter what I do. So next, the other mini announcement is I'm working on Battle High 2 A Xchange. That's what I'm tentatively calling it. I've started it a while ago, but this is like the official, I've started a clean project, a clean repository for it, trying to really clean some things up. Despite all the Unity drama, I'm still doing Unity and Photon Quantum. They're just what I know really well, and I don't have the time, energy, or desire to really learn a new engine right now, especially for this game. The Unity thing is just taught that, you should probably have something in your back pocket more than anything, but I've been through Adobe doing horrible crap to their products. I've been through Autodesk doing stuff, so it's like I'm used to public companies taking a massive dump on things, and there's way worse things than the runtime fee thing. The change in TOS, the always online for the free edition. There's so many other things that are kind of like blech, but I'm still sticking with it for this game because I feel this is not something I want to be. This is not a project I want to do 2 years of. I want it to be 6 months to a year, and I don't think I could do that if I went to Game Maker or Godot or whatever. And I also, going to the game itself. Outside of that PSA, I want to have 4-player tag, Little League or Riot Project L, but it's, the original Battle High was a tag game, so I kind of want to bring that back into the game. Yeah, the Adobe stuff. I still have CS4, and I will never upgrade to cloud until CS4 stops installing on machines. But for the Battle High stuff, there is 2 new characters possibly, but I don't want to promise those. It's more of a there's one that's unfinished, and I would just either need to find someone to finish it or maybe try to finish it myself, but that's a little risky. I'd love to do a crowdfunding campaign because one of the big things I want to redo is some of the VO. We just want to redo some of the voice acting is all. But the overall idea is I want it to be a relatively quick project, and like in games, it's very rare to have a hello, Sylvie. It's very hard to have a fast project in game development. There's usually no, I don't want to say no such thing, but like, it's kind of that weird when a lot of people are like, make a lot of small games. It's like, well, what is small? Even with all the assets of the game being done, I do want to take the time to do a better job designing Battle High's characters. Like, right now, when I was looking at the cast, like, some of the characters are very similar, so I want to take the time to define them out more clearly. Things I should have done with Murph, I'd be like, okay, what's his character's goal? What are their weaknesses? How do they play? And kind of figure out that stuff with this game in the future. But again, it's a small project and it's supposed to just be fun and demonstrate my skill with Photon to try to get a 4-player or 2v2 tag game. It's 4-player, but it's 2v2 at the end of the day. And it's not going to always be that. You can still do 1v1 because I don't want people who like the classic game. Well, I mean, people who like the classic game, I'm hoping like this more. It is always surprising when people say they really like Battle High, and I'm always just like, oh, that's awesome, but also surprising because it's so old now. And I see all the flaws when I see people play it. So it's always a little like, I'm glad people like it, but I'm always a little surprised, especially because it didn't have online or doesn't have online. And then earlier in the month, I tried doing a Photon Quantum tutorial. I did a stream of it, and it was not very good. I wasn't focused on the window, and stuff broke. It was taking a while. I just didn't really like the way the stream turned out. So I want to try to do it again in October, but I'm going to do it not streamed because I think streaming was a little distracting when I was like doing a tutorial and people were asking me, they weren't even asking me questions, they were just commenting and I'd have to like pause to read what they were saying. This format I think is fine for that, but for like a tutorial, it kind of breaks concentration and makes it a little tricky. So I want to try to do that again. The first part will probably just be like initial setup and like this is what Quantum is and how it works and not like a full game. And then the idea would be that over time it would be a full game. So that went a lot faster than I was expecting, which is great. It's only about 11:16 on my end, so if there is any Q&A, I'll be happy to answer it for the next, I don't know, 5-10 minutes or however many questions there are. Otherwise, I will just wrap this stream up early, or not early, but just like faster than I was expecting, which is good. And makes me want to do more of these. So, all right. So Sylvie wants to know the MerFight stuff they missed. I mostly just went over the changes for the game, which I could quickly bring back up. Went over the survey stuff about who's strong and that the online could be improved. Did some stuff to improve grapplers. Mostly tried to address some issues with vortexes. A lot of like throw invulnerability on backdash, the air reset stuff. Where you do the little like 15 frame hop out of stuff, and then just some other improvements, and then also the Alex Alchemy tournament in October. Did not want to go there. Not that it really matters, but that was most of the MerFight stuff you missed. I would say 6 to 8 months is small, depending on the goal of it. And depending on the genre and whatnot. So like small game, it's annoying because a game jam game is a small game. Done in a weekend, done in a week, But that's usually not sold, or at least from my experience. Like you are just like, I made a game, cool. For me, it's more of the product side of it is what takes a lot of time. Making trailers, making your Steam page, all that stuff is where like the 6 to 8 month part comes in, all that polish work too. Like a game jam game, you do it in a weekend, it looks awful. You have programmer art everywhere. The audio is all weird stuff you got for free on the internet. Like that's a small game, but it's not a small product. And I think that's where that conversation gets a little confusing for people because people will go, I made a bunch of small projects. Why did the project I spent 3 years on not sell? And it's like, because those small things that you spent a week on weren't sellable. They weren't you didn't practice those marketing skills in the small project. So for me, I would say 6 to 8 months is small. But then there's also like time and money kind of go into that too. Like you can spend a lot of money in a short period of time, and then that project's not really small anymore. As opposed to like you spend barely any money, but it takes 2 years, but it's still a relatively small game because you didn't really do a lot with that. I'm not familiar with using it. I have, talked to the dev in some discords, and I have not tried it. From what I hear, people who have used it like it. My only hesitation is I just know Unity too well to want to make a leap quite yet, as I mentioned earlier. But yeah, that to me, my only hesitation with Godot is console, which sounds so dumb, but like, apparently Godot is very difficult to do console stuff with. They're making something that apparently will make it easier, but it's still probably going to be a challenge without hiring a porting company. Approach a publisher as to what aspect the marketing's part, or just in general. In terms of publishing, I know publishers are in a weird space right now. Because the one issue is, I read something about this today. I don't know how accurate it is. I forgot the source. Essentially, it was like a lot of companies grew during COVID, and now they're realizing they overspent and they have to shrink. So there's a lot of publishers being a little like hesitant to fund smaller games or fund indie games in general. And fighting games are probably one of the hardest genres to get a publisher behind because they just don't know how to market it really well. They're a little intimidated by the genre. They don't really want to do it. So it's very difficult to get a publisher to help. I would love to find a publisher to do with marketing stuff. That would have helped the MerFight a lot. And I almost had some luck with that. I got approached by a publisher and then they ghosted, which happens. But I also have never really tried pitching. I don't. There is an indie dev who made a pitch deck recently and released it publicly, and I want to try, not Battle High. I don't really want to work with a publisher for Battle High. Maybe I do. But I want to try to work with that pitch deck and actually pitch a game in the future. I just don't really want to do that right now. I'm not quite there yet. But I think that would be great to get a publisher to help with stuff. Okay, so putting a game on Steam. Now, I'm not a Steam expert at all when it comes to putting on stuff. The only thing I know is that wishlisting early is like super important, or putting up your Steam page is super important so that people can start wishlisting it, because there's all these like, if you get 7K wishlist and before launch, or 20K, some number of wishlists, I think it's 7K wishlist before launch, your game will go big boosted, and all this almost cursed, all this algorithm bull crap that makes making a Steam game like 10 times more stressful. I mean, it is stressful. And then all these little like algorithm and wish lists and all these things you're watching for make it like 10 times more stressful. For example, MerFight still only has like 27 reviews. I'm supposed to be at like 50 before it's like notable or important. Like once you get like 50 positive reviews, like little systems and things turn on Steam side. And I still only have like 27. That's why I barely had the MerFight Steam page up. I think it was like a week or two, and then I launched in early access. And early access is another thing that's kind of it doesn't do, I don't think it does what Steam intended. I think originally they wanted early access to be this like, oh, your game's out early and people can buy it and pay for it and play it and kind of play test it. And I think it kind of just isn't working that way. People don't like it. They expect more polished, finished games in early access, to the point where Steam now has a thing called Steam Playtest. I don't know how new that is, but we use that for Drag Her. And I almost think that would be more useful than early access launch, because you could still have people play it and play it through Steam and get feedback in various forms like a Discord. But I don't know if I would recommend early access. I don't know if I would do that again, but because it's all these like, again, algorithm stuff. Once you launch your early access page, it's a big thing, and then once you leave early access, you get another big push on the front page and stuff, but it's not as big as when you initially launch. It's just all this like really stressful headache stuff. But I would say those would probably be my two biggest ones. Just get the Steam page up early is probably the biggest one, and then integrating Steam stuff into a game is a little annoying. It's very, I don't want to say dated, but there is just some like in the Unity tools for it are fine and they work, but they're a little like weird, and they're a little bit of a headache, but they work. So yeah, so that's my answer for that. Ugh. Oh, Cupcake. Cupcake is going a little bit back in the oven on low for a very long time. No, my issue with Cupcake, as much as I want to do it, it's a 3D fighting game, kind of, I want to take my time with the art style and the art direction of it, which I didn't do for MerFight, is number one. And I want to get the, yeah, I just want to get the art style and actually know what the game is more. And like, as much as I like the dessert theme, I'm kind of like, maybe it's not really right for what I'm doing, because like I should explore other options and not just call it that and be done with it. But I think the other thing too is the fighting game market feels very saturated now with Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1, Project L, Tekken 8. So like, I've been thinking of maybe doing the single player game for that, and possibly doing a single player approach. And that one too, I would actually try to pitch to publishers, because I think as a single player game, even with fighting influence, would be easier to pitch and get picked up. It is hard to give up on a good name and concept. It's not, I mean, the thing is, I don't know how good it really is yet, because I think when I say, it's kind of like when MerFight, when I'm like, oh yeah, MerFight's not underwater, and people are like, what? So I'm like, oh, Cupcake is dessert themed, but not like strawberry shortcake, and not that extremely dessert themed, and they're like, oh, that's weird. I'm like, yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, but no problem with the Steam question. Yeah, GM's Game Maker's Steam integration is probably pretty decent, if it's anything like Unity's, I would imagine. Am I looking for an artist for Cupcake? Not yet. I think it depends on what the art style is. And my only thing is I tend to do stuff very low budget, and I always get very hesitant to hire people, because I know how much that like eats cost like immediately when you hire a person to do art. But at the same time, it might be something that I'm not against looking into more, even if it's like concept. Usually 2D artist I'm more inclined to work with, like a concept artist, or something like that. But like doing the 3D modeling, it's still like, that one's tougher, because that I feel like you have to keep working with the same people to do good 3D stuff. It needs to be consistent, and you need to have the pipelines down to be consistent. So if it's 2D art, yes, I would probably be looking for an artist in that realm in some point in the future. 3D artist, it's a little more, I'd rather work on it myself, just because I know the risk of having 3D artists kind of cycle in and out. That's kind of the one issue with MerFight environments, is there was an artist working on them, and then they had to leave, so now I was kind of left with some like half-finished stuff, and it's kind of like, ugh. So it's kind of like, if I can't, and if I ever get to the point where I can hire someone consistently, then yes, I would love to work with people and do that, but I'm not there, and I may never get there with the scope and size of my indie stuff. So we will see how that goes. Anyway, I think if there's no other questions, I think I'm gonna end the stream. Thanks again for coming out. I really appreciate it. Oh, another question. Yes, it is probably going to be like, I realize I'm not showing the chat, so people can't see the questions. I'm doing the Q&A. So I want it to be a very simple 2v2. Like, I don't even want assist, or I might do assist, but I want to, my initial thing was not to do assist. I was going to have the basic tag where you hold a button, the character tags in. I was also going to do something with Battle High's Rush Cancel, where you could do a tag during the rush, and it'd be really fast and continue a combo that way. And then I wanted to do that when your ally gets defeated, the remaining character goes into like an elemental power-up mode, kind of like Street Fighter Cross Tekken's Pandora mode. But it doesn't like drain their health or anything. It's just like, okay, if my partner was I am now like Arctic, because her defeat has powered my character up. So you kind of get down. It's almost like a comeback mechanic that is just based on the fact that I beat my opponent, but then if I beat my opponent's ally, then they get powered up. So it's just 2 powered up players fighting at the end. Might not do that. Might make it a toggleable option. I don't know. But that was sort of the thinking of it. I don't know Cerebral. I haven't played Cerebral in forever. I don't know how their tagging and assist stuff works. But yeah, that was something I wanted to look into for Battle High. And my hope is that with Quantum, even though it is cloud-based, it allows for rollback with 4 players pretty easily. So we'll see how that goes. And I still want to keep classic mode. The other change to Battle High that I want to do is that I want every character to have 2 supers, because I do want dual tag supers as well. But some of the supers don't really work well in a tag system. They're very throw-based. I think like Mize is kind of throw-based, and someone else has like a throw-based super. So we'll see how that goes. And that's the thing I'm working on now. If I go back to the slide, I'm trying to do a different approach. Is I'm working on the menus now. I'm working on all the menus and all the really boring crap in a game. The UI, making sure button config works, making sure the online lobbies work. And the nice thing, hopefully with Photon Quantum, I can do spectating properly so that a player can... My hope is that it's kind of like the Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite lobbies, where it's like 8 to 16 players in a room, and then you can do 4 matches, and I can watch and leave any match that I want and kind of go from there. The one thing I am going to do differently probably than I did for MerFight is I'm probably not even going to bother with like a ranked mode in Battle High off the bat. I'll probably just be like quick match and that's it. And then if enough players are in the community, then I'd be like, okay, here's a ranked mode with like a little score system so that you get better matchmaking, or do the matchmaking in the back end. So even though it's quick casual, there is like a little hidden score, so that the hope is that you get matched with better players. But like MerFight's ranked and casual or quick match stuff isn't being utilized enough that like the ranked mode stuff I did in there just wasn't, it's not like, yeah, obviously eventually it will be useful, but it's not the most useful thing for the game. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be the hope. And that was the other thing. Yeah, for forcing King of the Hill lobbies. Yeah, I think Mortal Kombat 1 is doing that and annoying some people. And yeah, that would be the hope, because like the thing that I want to do with the quantum stuff in the back end anyway, it is still cloud-based, which I know not a lot of people are going to love, but the idea is that it's going to get your region. There we go. So some people are using quick match. That's good to know. What was I going to say? That actually has been one thing I've been wanting to look into. Obviously, there's bugs in MerFight's lobbies too. I don't think the King of the Hill and loser stays and all this stuff works. But I want to... so you can do rematches in MerFight, even in a lobby. Probably some kind of... One thing I had to change in MerFight, actually, is I had 20-player lobbies, and Photon doesn't allow 20-player rooms. It only allows 16-player rooms. So I reduced that, and then I was like, I realized I have more UI space now to add a few more buttons, so I could maybe add some things like allow rematch or turn this off or something. I don't know exactly what. So I'll have to work on those and figure those out. Lower priority things, but I'll get to those. But yeah, the idea with the Photon thing is it's going to record like what server is best for you to use, and then try to pick the best server for your matchup based on who your opponent is, regardless of like where they are. So you don't have to do the whole like, I want to look in the European server, I want to look in this server. It's like, no, you're all going to be connecting from one matchmaking server, and then it's going to say, okay, these 2 players are from East Coast, they're going to go to the East Coast one. This player's from, the West Coast, and this player's from Europe. We're going to try in the East Coast server because that's kind of in the middle. Like just something like that in the back end to take away more of that confusion that is kind of happening with MerFight, which I think the MerFight thing is fine. I mean, I think there's some games that do stuff like that. I think Battle of the Grid, I think, just blocks different regions or locks you out of certain regions, which makes sense because they want the best quality, I think. But I don't quite know. They might have changed that. That might have been a launch thing. But yeah, I'm not really sure. But yeah, that's my hope for Battle High, and then future fighting game stuff I do is to have the lobbies work like that. So Cupkick will definitely just be a 1v1. I don't think I'm going to do a 4-player mode for that like DOA or anything. But or if I did a 2v2, it would be like DOAs. I wouldn't try to do anything more than that. But I don't really see that happening right now. And there's a lot of learning and design work I have to do for 3D if I want to try to actually do a 3D game. I think I have enough experience and understanding of the 2D genre now that I can kind of design and understand weaknesses and archetypes. But I definitely would need to ask around people who play 3D fighters more for that insight. Anyway, if there aren't any other questions, thanks for coming out. Thanks for the questions. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna head off for a bit and probably get back to working on some MerFight stuff, hopefully that backdash stuff actually works and not just for GG. Kind of go from there. Thanks again for coming out. I really appreciate it. This will be on my YouTube at some point, and like I said, I kind of want to do these monthly, so I'll probably do another one like late October after the Alex Alchemy tournament, and kind of go from there. So thanks, and there we go, and see ya.